Okay, thank
the
you.
first, the
Kumar got an urgent call and he's getting right back on right now.
Okay, great.
Okay,
and coming through. Yeah,
let's,
no.
shall we go ahead and begin the Academic Affairs Committee then?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, Julie, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Governor Gaffney is here.
Here.
Governor Brisito,
Here.
Governor Kumar, Governor Stancato,
Here.
Governor Kelly,
Here.
Professor Hoogland. Not here as yet. I know Professor Golubowska is not able to be with us. Manat Betty.
Here.
And Kamali Clora.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hey, Julie, am I coming through now?
Yes, we can hear you. It's you.
Okay, all right. I was talking earlier, and I'm sorry. Just I'm having problems with my mic, but great.
Okay, continuing, next item is approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 12th, please?
So moved.
Support.
Is there a second? Moved and supported. Any comments, corrections, deletions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item, we're going to hear about 4 times, I'd say, from Provost Clabo. And then our last presentation will be from Ahmad Ezzeddine. So Provost Clabo, if you would start, please, with the establishment of a new program for Masters of Science in Dietetics.
Thank you, Governor Gaffney, and good morning, everyone. So in keeping with the order of business of our last number of academic affairs meetings, we come to you today with a request for the establishment of 2 new programs. And the first is the Master of Science in Dietetics in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences to be effective fall of 2021. And this again follows a theme of many of the establishments or discontinuances that we've discussed over the course of this academic year, and that is the requirement for credentialing in dietetics has changed from a baccalaureate degree to a master's degree, and students who complete only the baccalaureate degree will not be eligible to sit for certification and licensure effective January 1st of 2024. So the program and the college are asking the board to consider the establishment of a master's program, which is consistent with both their national accreditation requirements and the requirements of their certifying body. This program will include both didactic and clinical or field practice experiences and will culminate in a capstone course. It has been approved obviously by the faculty in the Department of Nutrition and Food Sciences, by the Class Faculty Council and Faculty Assembly, by the Dean of Class, the Graduate Council, the Dean of the Graduate School, and the Interim Provost. And we're asking for your approval of the establishment of this new program. Any questions?
Yeah, are there any questions? Have we had a master's degree in this area at all prior?
We have not. This is a new program.
Okay. All right, I would just as soon, Julie, go ahead and take the vote on each thing individually this morning. So if there are no questions, a motion to approve the establishment of this program would be in order.
Governor Brisito moved. Need a second.
Support. Second.
Okay, any last chance for questions of Provost Clabo? I don't. I don't want to make this all about me this morning, but I know that this is absolutely true. I have a niece that just graduated in a master's degree here from Eastern Michigan with this exact same thing. And Provost, her experience followed what you'd laid out in the paperwork pretty closely. All right, I'll call for the vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next we've got the establishment of a new program for the Master of Arts in Environmental Science.
Thank you, Governor Gaffney. This program, again, request comes to us from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences for a program that they are hoping to begin effective fall of 2021. And this is a particularly interesting and innovative new development for Wayne State. This will be one of our first fully online graduate science degrees. And the school believes that it will allow the Department of Environmental Sciences and Geology in class to recruit a diverse pool of students, including students from outside of Michigan. This obviously provides students with a set of skills that are relevant across a number of industries and businesses which are described in the program description. And this is a master's program which includes coursework only. There are no field requirements. There are 2 tracks or pathways that are described in the documents that you have seen. We believe, and the faculty in the department and in the college believe, this is a program that's both relevant and timely. Obviously, given current interest in the environment, I'm looking at Kamali Clora as I'm talking. I know this is a particular interest to Kamali. And this proposal was approved by the faculty of the Department of Environmental Science and Geology, by the Class Faculty Council and Faculty Assembly, the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, the Grad Council, the Dean of the Grad School, and the Interim Provost. And we're asking for your approval.
Questions, please.
Dean, do the students in this program spend any time on campus at all?
So the description is fully online, 3 core courses, 6 to 7 elective courses. I would, just to be absolutely certain, I believe Associate Dean Heather Dillaway from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences is here. Are you here, Heather?
Good morning, Provost Clabo. This is Ken Jackson. I'm here
Great.
with Heather
Hi,
this
Ken.
morning. It is all online, but again, I would. We've also got Mark Baskrin here, Chair of Environmental Sciences and Geology, and really the principal driver behind the program, who is probably the best place to answer the specific questions about the program. I can talk generally about them in terms of how they fit into the college strategic plan, but I defer to Professor Baskrin. But yes, this is all. What makes this unique is it's an all online, as you said at the beginning, all online science program for 30 credits, and this is, I believe, the first at the university. It's certainly the first for our class.
Right. This is Mark Baskrin. It's true. It's completely online. And when we did some research to find out what similar courses are offered or programs are offered in the nation, we didn't find much. This was about 2 years ago.
So are there other programs in the nation where a course, a degree can be obtained like this without ever setting foot on campus?
There are many online programs, but not the sole focus on changes in the environment, biological, geological changes in the last 200 years, what we call Anthropocene.
And again, this is clearly a timely area of interest.
Any other questions? Would anyone like at a later date or additional information about this later on?
Mark, this is Shirley Stankhouse. I just want to say that I really think it's very much forward thinking. Many of us have just come off a conference, a national conference of governing boards from around the country. And this is the kind of thing really that from my perspective and based upon the information really is going to keep us in the game, if you will, doing something new, something progressive. So I have to commend you guys for doing it. And I really think it's a step in the right direction.
Thanks, Shirley. It's a brave new world. Okay, can I have a motion then to support the establishment of, let me make sure I'm saying this right, our very first completely online master's degree that will be offered literally nationally. Did I say that correct, Provost?
We actually have other online master's degrees, for example, in information science. Our Master's of Information Science is fully online. This will be the first fully online science degree in the College of Liberal Arts and Science.
Thank you. Good. Okay, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
I'll support.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The next item is also with Provost Clabo, course material fees report for the year 2021.
So this is an annual report presented to the board for information. No action is required. And the board statute requires that once a year, the president or his or her designee present to the board a report on course material and breakage fees. And course material fees are really the fees that are charged in about just under 15% of our courses on campus for largely materials that are expendables. So we think about things that students will use, pottery in those classes, beakers and materials in science labs, particular supplies in the health professions, and increasingly also the cost of standardized testing that is required in some of these courses for accreditation. And the CMF report is included in your packet. I would just ask if there are questions.
Are there any questions? Some fees went up a little. Some fees went up considerably. I was going to ask how many students are impacted. I appreciate you having that information at about 15%. Probably unavoidable here. Julie, would you tip Susan Burns off that we'll have a question regarding this for her this afternoon? I don't suppose she's on the phone now. I'd like to know.
She's on the phone.
Oh, is she? Oh, Susan,
I am here.
would you? Thank you. Would you tell us, please, our usual sorts of scholarships? So later today, we're going to approve with appreciation a number of scholarships, in people's names. Are students able to access those funds for these fees?
Generally, actually, Dawn would probably be the best person to answer this. We have some scholarships that are specifically for those kinds of things like fees, but the general scholarships, I'm not sure.
We'll check on that for you.
Is Dawn here?
I don't believe Dawn is on the call, but we can certainly get the answer to that question.
We'll get an answer for you this morning.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
Oh, we have late breaking news. We have an answer. And the answer is
Good.
yes, Governor Gaffney.
Good. Great. Good news is we have an answer, and the good news is yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions on course material fees report? Okay, we'll go on then to the, I guess this one is will require action. We are seeking to extend suspension of the SAT and ACT again. So Provost Clabo, please walk us through that.
So we are asking you to extend waiving of these standardized test requirements. You'll remember that the board first took this action in, I believe, April of last year, extended it again on June 19th of 2020, and we are asking you to consider extension of the test optional option for applications through the fall 22 cycle. And the reasoning for that obviously is that students are still, particularly disadvantaged students and students in our Detroit metro environment, are having trouble accessing the standardized tests. Those that were planned to be offered, many of them were canceled as a result of the most recent surge in cases in Michigan. We continue to see that it is really, really difficult for students to access the ability to take the ACT or SAT.
So questions or comments, please?
Yeah,
Hey,
but
Lori.
I have a question. I don't know, but I was going to ask Lori is do we have inside the university a move afoot to look at eliminating this as a requirement for admission altogether? I know many universities across the country have done that. They look at some other things to put in place, but has there been any conversation about eliminating this standardized test as a requirement for admission to Wayne State?
That's a really good question, Governor Stancato, and I think you're right. It's has been an ongoing discussion in essentially every university over the last number of years. That actually one of the unanticipated benefits of what's happened to us during the pandemic, and there are very few, is that we will have suspended this requirement long enough that we will actually have some reasonable data upon which to make decisions moving forward. And I know that Dawn Medley in enrollment management and Monica Brockmeyer in student success, who you'll hear from later today, are both collecting data on the success of our holistic review process. And many of our schools and colleges have used holistic review, particularly the health sciences. I think President Wilson would probably agree. Medicine and nursing were among the first to adopt holistic review for admissions at a national level. Combined with this data, we'll be in a much better position to suggest to the board whatever action we suggest moving forward, because we'll have 2 years of good, reliable data.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question or make a comment?
Please do.
And I hope Dr. Wilson corrects me if I'm wrong here, but it looks like with the experience at the medical school, traditionally we were taking kids with MCATs in the 80 percentile range. And over at the med school, they tell me since they've instituted the holistic approach, they can go well down to the 50th percentile and still have pass rates on the STEP exams north of 97%. So I think that tells us a lot, that I think we really overinvested in trying to predict how people would do just based on those tests. So I anticipate we'll see the same thing occur in the undergraduate level on main campus. Were those pretty numbers, Roy?
So I was part of a national effort to make the MCAT pass-fail. But when we looked at the data, it actually was counterintuitive. But by making the MCAT pass-fail, we would have actually had less diversity, because a lot of medical schools was moving toward more of a holistic kind of review, and they had a lot more flexibility to go as low as they wanted to go on the MCATs without a pass-fail option. On a pass-fail option, you have to have some sort of cutoff somewhere. And whatever the cutoff were, the study showed that many medical schools were able, through holistic review, to go below those cutoffs. And actually, these students do, very, very well. And so we abandoned that effort to make the MCAT pass-fail because of that.
And
So you're right. Yeah.
Governor Basuito, I believe President Wilson actually co-chaired AAMC AACN committee on the development of holistic review in the health professions, and the data from that study played out just exactly as you've described, that students who would have otherwise not been admitted on the basis of standardized test scores did very well, and we did not see pass rates on either the STEP exams or the certification exams in other disciplines.
Yeah, and in fact, you might recall, Lori, that the actual study showed that the outcome, this is particularly for nursing, the long-term outcome was actually better in the students that underwent holistic review, because what they did much more service to the community than those that were not accepted, and they still had the same pass rates at the on the credentialing examinations, but what they did was much more community oriented in terms of serving the community. And so we thought that the outcome actually was better for these students than the students that did not go through holistic review.
And we added diversity to our programs at the same time.
Mark, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Thanks. So Provost Clabo, have you noticed that has there been information about enhanced diversity at the undergraduate level as a result of the holistic review of applications and admissions?
So I think I don't have the data at the undergraduate level in front of me. We'll get that for you, but I can say that in both medicine and nursing, who've had a longer track history of using holistic review locally, we have enhanced diversity.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit longer, Governor Thompson, to be able to get that data, because particularly this past year, we did have a lot more diversity, but we also had other factors involved. For example, the scholarship, the Heart of Detroit scholarship was a big factor. And so we'll probably need more long-term longitudinal data to really be able to, understand the effect solely of that one factor.
Okay. Does that take like a year, several months?
I think that would take years.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I've never really been a fan of standardized testing, but is there any way that students on the undergraduate level skipping this test might experience negative consequences later on in their career? Should they move to other schools? Should they move on to graduate school? I'm just wondering how that plays out when they want to move on or away from Wayne.
Thanks, Professor Hoogland. I think that's a good question. And as someone mentioned, this move is certainly a national move afoot that was before the pandemic. And this is becoming far more the norm than we would have seen even 4 or 5 years ago, that schools are test optional admission. And so what will, obviously for graduate school, you've seen the same process happening at the graduate level, where more and more schools are no longer requiring, for example, the GRE, and that other forms of review that look more holistically at a student, whether they choose to move to another university during their undergraduate period, or more holistic review as a graduate for graduate admissions, become essentially the national norm.
Okay, Thank you.
I have a question. When those who counsel students talk to them about these tests now, what do they say if the student says, why should I bother going through the test, risking that I get a bad result if it's optional in the first place? Why not skip it?
Well, that's a really good question, Governor Kelly. I think Professor Hoogland, you were present at a presentation by Don Medley, and we should probably ask Don at some point to come talk to the committee about the impact of holistic review. But there are some schools, Governor Kelly, that have chosen to be test blind in admissions. So whether a student takes the test or not, they don't look at them. Others where the tests are considered as part of a set of factors if a student chooses to take them. We've adopted a test optional that looks like test blind, frankly, process at Wayne State, so that students who choose to take the test are not disadvantaged if their score is not exceptionally high.
Yeah, if I can just come in for just a second here, I think this really does require a very thorough discussion with data, and we're getting the data down. I think I mentioned that the retreat that we had at the board retreat, that this will be one of the things that we'll have to, take a real close look at. It's the holistic review at the undergraduate level, and this might get a little bit at what you were getting ready to say, Governor Thompson, or that you did say. Holistic review at the undergraduate level is not the same as in medical school or nursing school, where you have hundreds of slots versus tens of thousands of slots, and so the whole interview process is very, very different for medical school and nursing school and some other health professional schools. And so the kind of interaction that you can have is just more, you get much more information than in a situation where you're going to have thousands and tens of thousands of applicants. Having said that, because of the pandemic, I think we're all learning how to interview differently also, and it becomes easier to do interviews through Zoom and Microsoft Teams and things like that we haven't done before for the first time. And for medical school interviews, videos are being used now, as opposed to medical students having to, this isn't universal yet, but instead of medical school students having to spend tens of thousands of dollars going to all these different positions for postgraduate training. And so I think we'll have a very thorough discussion of this at the right time with data. So I just wanted to assure the board that that's coming.
Good, thank you.
But in the meantime, we need to take a vote to continue to extend the suspension of these tests. Any other questions? Well, then I'd ask for a motion to extend the suspension of the admissions tests for fall of 2022.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank
Governor
you.
State, I believe supported. You have a second.
If there are no other questions, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Provost Clabo, will you introduce Ahmad Ezzedine, or shall I?
I'd be happy to do that, Governor Gaffney.
Well, I like him too, but you go ahead.
I like you too, Governor.
We could, but it probably wouldn't be appropriate. At this meeting, I believe 2 meetings ago, members of the board asked some questions about how we were doing with things like study abroad and other forms of global engagement since the pandemic had started. And for that reason, we asked Ahmad Ezzedine, who is no stranger to clearly academic affairs, to come and talk about the amazing work that he and his team have done in the past year. I think Ahmad has actually increased our capacity for students to have some level of global engagement, even in a remote environment. So we're pleased that he's here to talk about that work today. Ahmad.
Thank you. Thank you, Provost. Let me share my screen. Good morning, all. Good to see you. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today to update you on our global activities. The events of the last 14 months highlighted how connected we are as a global community. The pandemic itself, the universal march towards social justice, and the recommitment to global climate change, each in their own way underscore the importance of providing all of our students with the global skills and competencies they need now and in the years to come. We call our cornerstone initiative Global Learning for All. The goal of Global Learning for All is to provide every Wayne State student with the opportunity to participate in a substantive global experience by being open to new approaches or committed to knocking down barriers, financial, all this, regardless of the circumstances that can exist. We are in a position to provide this experience through study abroad programs, virtually with one of our global partners, or locally by engaging the rich and diverse communities, immigrant communities that we have in the region. This focus also provides a backbone for our efforts to connect our faculty with our global university partners, to promote Wayne State as a destination for international students and scholars, and it highlights the expertise and experience of our faculty and resources we have at the university, which are great. And I'm pleased to share with you some of those activities and successes. You're all probably familiar with the Fulbright program. It is the State Department's flagship educational and cultural exchange program. This past year, Wayne State was selected to host these programs that you see on the screen. Initially, we were one of 8 universities that were going to host the Gateway orientation in person. We were supposed to get 100 scholars to campus last year. Because of the pandemic, the State Department and the Institute for International Education asked for a sole provider to host the program virtually. We applied, we and the other universities applied, and we were the only one selected. Last year, we hosted 1,100 grantees. All of any international scholar who received a Fulbright Award participated in this program. And we got the contract again this year. This summer, we'll be hosting about 1,500 grantees. The program is 3 weeks, asynchronous content, and the content was developed and delivered by our faculty. The MENA program, the American Fulbright recipients heading to the MENA region, to the Middle East and North Africa to conduct their research and teaching. The program in 2020, we hosted 32 grantees, and in 2021, we are expected to host 40. The Global English Teaching Assistance Workshop orientation, also we did that last year. This year, we are gonna have 200 scholars who are gonna participate. And the one that we're really excited about this year is the Mandela Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders. It brings young leaders from multiple countries in sub-Saharan Africa on different focus areas. The focus of our program is public management, and we will be doing it virtually. Our faculty and public administration have developed and are still making tweaks to the program. It will be virtual. Unfortunately, we would have loved to have those scholars here on campus, but hopefully we will do that next year. Wayne State, by the way, is the only new grantee. There has been a network of universities that have done this program. So we joined Arizona State, UC Davis, Georgia State, Northwestern. So some big names, and we are the only one that have been added to the list this year. So providing these opportunities for our students and faculty to be exposed to these opportunities and programs is also designed to motivate them to participate directly in them. We know our students would be great candidates for these programs. They can win these awards. They just need the mentoring and the support. So this year we launched a new initiative to encourage our students to apply for international fellowships like Fulbright, Truman, Rhodes, etc. Going through the application process also helps them with their, in their future for their job search or for applying for grad school. So the process itself is helpful even if they don't win. So we are working with them on that. We are scaling our efforts, and in this regard, we have Dr. Kevin Deegan-Krause from our Honors College helping us with this process, and we now have a website with information on the awards, deadlines, requirements. We are holding information sessions and helping students with their application. And since we launched the effort in December, we have 113 students who have expressed interest, more than probably if we add all the information sessions, we have probably close to 200 students participate in the information sessions. And we have 14 students who completed the pre-application already, and 19 students are working on them. Last year, I think we had 3 Fulbright applicants. So it's already making a difference. We are also expanding our efforts to increase the number of faculty members seeking Fulbright and similar prestigious fellowships, holding information session, engaging in outreach, and providing direct support process. Actually, our record is everybody we've worked been selected to go to the next stage. So they were pre-approved in the U.S. and their application went to the home country where they where the award would be. So we hope that more faculty will engage as well with us on this process. Another initiative which was accelerated due to the dramatic impact of the pandemic was the launch and expansion of our virtual exchange programs. We started with programs where students from the US and German partner institutions work collaboratively during a regularly scheduled course. The international learning experience is kind of integrated in the existing curricula at the different institutions, so it's not a new course, but we're just adding a global component to the existing course. And the students are working with their counterpart on a project virtually and across time zones, across languages, across cultures. So that's the learning that's happening. So with that was funded. We received a grant from the AAD to support this initiative. We're holding this November. Hopefully, COVID will be under control at Wayne State for our faculty and the faculty who are participating from the German side to develop and continue to expand this initiative. And we also received last year, inspired by this work, we received a grant from the U.S. Embassy in the UAE to develop these kind of partnerships between Wayne State and American institutions and UAE institutions. United Arab Emirates, particularly with the American University of Ras Al Khaimah, with which we have already a partnership. We have a 3+2 agreement. So the key activities there is to expand, continue to develop and build the capacity of our faculty to deliver and design and deliver these kind of engagements, and look at some additional research opportunities and research collaborations that could be developed, and do maybe some visiting. We're actually establishing a visiting faculty program as well as part of that grant that we will be exploring, and the program is currently underway. Yes. Oh, okay, sorry, I thought I heard something. Leveraging what we have learned from these engagements and the grant funding we have received, we launched this year also the Global Learning Faculty Fellows. Initially focused, so it's 15 faculty representing six schools. Initially focused on undergraduate students and first and second year courses, with the idea that if we introduce this global component to the students and expose them early, they will have time to plan and think about where and how to go study abroad when they are juniors and seniors. And we will have time to work with them on finding the appropriate support, financial support to do that. We have 6 schools involved: business, education, engineering, fine performing communication arts, liberal school of social work, and the goal is this will hopefully, the plan is to continue this. We're going to open up to graduate students and the whole campus community. So we know there is interest in nursing and medicine. There are opportunities in different areas. The fellowship provides professional development, instructional design, and networking support for the faculty to help them also to help them bring that global component to their courses. The outreach also, these new initiatives are built on the success of our past efforts to recruit, enroll, support, and engage the international students who are such an important part of the Wayne State community. On the recruiting front, since September, we recruited in 55 countries and have gone virtually to countries we've never visited before. We participated in 39 virtual fairs and a series of webinars and meetings with prospective students and counselors. And as a result, our international applications and admissions are at a 5-year high currently. Actually, we are now focusing on yield and conducting webinars and other outreach to the admitted students to encourage them and keep them engaged. And we are praying for our embassies to open so we can start issuing visas so we can get those students here to campus. We have also paid special attention to the needs of our current international students who are on campus, who are in the country, as they have struggled with a lot of the effects of the pandemic, the immigration changes that took place last year, the financial stresses and the strict travel restrictions that have also affected many of them. Particularly our Canadian students compelled us to expand the support we were providing in a number of areas. As you see, we've had more than, probably by now, it's more than 8,000 interactions, varying from signing their immigration documents to supporting them with housing issues or financial issues, providing some emergency support for them. The need is there. The third of our international students have used the third of the users of the food pantry are international students. So we know the needs there, and we've been working very hard to make sure we support them as much as we can. With that, this is really, so we're going to continue this outreach. I think there is a silver lining from the pandemic. One of the few things, the positive things that have emerged is really our ability to think beyond the traditional ways and means to really expand and reach and think and do things differently to expand our global work and engage more of our students and give them more opportunities in that way. With that, I will stop and answer any questions you may have.
Questions, please.
I just have a comment. This is Anil Kumar. I just want to comment Ahmed for his very, very good work that he's doing for the university. We really appreciate that. So thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kind of worries me that 1/3 of the use of the food pantry are international students. Does that mean that they come with too little money, too little support, like too little in place?
It's a combination of things. I don't think they come with too little money. A lot of, one thing, for example, we know a lot of our international students used to work on campus. Some of that work has stopped, right? So we have some countries that, banks have stopped, so parents could not send wire money at the same, at the frequency they did. So a lot of issues that really are driven by the lockdowns that happened in their own countries as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions. One is about the Faculty Fellows Program that you mentioned, and how faculty are selected for that, or how do they apply for the program? That's one question.
Sure. This year was a pilot. So we, as I mentioned, we have the 2 grants. So we tried to take advantage of it. We're going to do some of this work. So we figured we'd try to expand it and scale it. So we asked for expressions of interest from faculty, and those expressions of interest went to the deans, and the deans nominated the faculty to, so we have 2 faculty from each college. The class had 5. And for this year, we had the deans basically nominated the faculty to participate in this program.
Yeah, I think that's a great program, and just a way to really allow faculty to, deepen their work and do something interesting with their career. So I really applaud that program and hope that more faculty have the opportunity to learn about it and potentially participate in it.
That's our intent.
Great. And then the second question is in terms of international students, and I think I probably asked this at the last meeting, but are there opportunities to engage with international students virtually? Given all of the challenges that students have had actually coming to the United States physically. And, we just heard about a virtual master's program. We already have virtual programs at the university. Are we pursuing those opportunities with our international students?
Absolutely, yes. So last fall, it wasn't a large number, but we had a handful of students actually start their courses online from their home countries. It wasn't in large numbers. This has been, so definitely that's one way we can, I think, continue to build on. One challenge we're going to need to look at if we are to do this is going to be the tuition. Because for international students, if they are doing online from their home country, trying to sell them on the out-of-state tuition rates may be an issue, and it's going to be. It comes up. So this is something that we're going to look at, a differential potentially for those programs, a differential fee structure. But the opportunity is absolutely is there. And we can, I think, continue to promote it. On the flip side to that, though, a lot of the international students really want to come to the U.S. So that's, they want to have the experience in country. But there are ways where we can work, and this is some of the work we're doing with our partners is through these combination programs, these joint programs, where they take a part of the program in country. Maybe we teach some courses virtually, but then they come in for a year or a semester to the US to kind of get at least the flavor of the experience. So all of those we are currently looking at and exploring, and I think present a great opportunity for us.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just had a quick question and a comment to make. This presentation was very interesting, and I know for students, these opportunities are so appreciated and they are so beneficial. I know for me, I'm looking into studying abroad, and the virtual exchanges are such a great opportunity. And I was just wondering, after the pandemic and when more traditional study abroads open, will the virtual exchange program still be available for students who want to look into that?
Absolutely. This is actually, we are launching, the pandemic helped us push and bring this to the university and do it in a way to show its impact. Study abroad, we send about 500, plus or minus a year abroad. We have 27,000 students, right? So that's a small number, and a lot of our students cannot go, but they deserve that global experience, and that's why we are starting these. And we hope that actually, because of also from a global perspective, it is important that we embed a global dimension to all of our disciplines. There is something. There's value in that, and we hope that this becomes available across all disciplines and across all schools and colleges.
Definitely, I think that's amazing.
Governor Gaffney, we are running just a bit late for the budget meeting that was supposed to start a while ago.
So,
You
yes.
noticed I didn't ask any questions. You can't blame me.
I just thought
So,
I just thought I would mention it. And Ahmad, could you stop sharing your screen, please?
yeah. So, Governor
Ahmad,
Gaffney, are you done with your
yeah.
meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
great.
Ahmad, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you,
Can I
Ahmad.
have a motion to adjourn, please? How's that?
Well, I think you can just adjourn it.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's just adjourn it.
Okay.
Get me out of trouble.
Great. Thank you very much, Governor Gaffney. You know, one of the there's very few advantages of the virtual versus in-person board meetings, but one of them is that we don't have to take as much time between committee meetings, trying to get everybody seated and so forth. So the next meeting is a Budget and Finance Committee, and so that one is chaired by Governor Barnhill. Governor Barnhill, if you're ready, I think we can move right into it because everybody should be available.
Okay, great. Good morning.
Okay.
Let's jump right into it. Can we have the roll, please?
Yes, Governor Barnhill,
Here.
Governor Stancato,
Here.
Governor Thompson,
Here.
Governor Gaffney,
Here.
Governor Kelly, unmute maybe, Paul Beavers, Linda Beal, I'm sorry, Professor Beal,
Here.
Jasmine Coles, Hafsa, where she is not available today. We do have a quorum, so you are able to proceed.
Okay, well, now I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting on March 12th.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, if there's no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. All right, now let's dig in here. First item is the contingency reserve.
And there's nothing, no requests this month for spending on the contingency reserve, so there's nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the report on the fiscal year 21-22 dining and housing rates. Mr. Michael.
Good morning. Thanks for the chance to come and, as I do every year, to talk about kind of the year in review on housing and dining, and then also ask for your approval for rates as we move into next year. Vice President Cook's going to run the slides for me, and so this is the brief agenda we want to cover this morning. Is just going to give you a review of how the pandemic has worked on campus this year for students who have chosen to live with us. Give you the room and board rates that have been approved by the partnership for next year, the room rates, I'm sorry, and then give you some highlights and then ask for your approval of the board rates. So next slide, please, 2 slides. So this is a slide I share every year, and it really shows the occupancy in housing over the last 10 years. And you can see we've been on an upward trajectory, and this was one of the main reasons why we actually entered our partnership with Forvius in 2017, because we had excess demand for housing. On the far right, you can see how the pandemic really impacted the number of students living on campus this year, half the normal number. We were very transparent with students during last summer about what it was going to be like to live on campus, needing to have mitigation strategies in place for the virus. And so we extended our cancellation date from the end of June to the day before the first day of class to give students as much opportunity to make the best choice for themselves. And many students decided to not come to campus in August. And so we opened at fall census at just over 1,500 residents. Our apartments, the UT apartments, our unfurnished apartments, were about 3/4 full because many of those students are 12-month residents with the university. And then we had about 30%, just over 30% of our traditional residence hall spaces filled. Next slide, please. Even though we're at 1/3 of our normal occupancy, the demographics, both in terms of age and of ethnic and racial mix, stayed pretty much the same. And so you can see that, over half the students that live with us are under 20 years old. So we are primarily, undergraduate housing system. Most of our graduate and professional students live in our apartments, and the residence halls are mostly undergraduate. And then our race and ethnicity breakdown, again, students, this is one of the strengths of our housing system, that we have great diversity among our students, and students value this and report that they enjoy living and interacting with students who aren't like themselves. And so we're happy to see that with this experience can continue to be provided even this year in the pandemic. This slide is to just show you where our current room and board rates, we benchmark a freshman room and board rate against other Michigan public universities. For the first time, the current rate in this year, we are above the average, which is represented by that red dot. We've slowly made our way from the bottom to the middle over the last 10 years, intentionally, trying to always measure affordability and access for our students. In the yellow box at the bottom right, the notes, kind of the notable reasons why we're above the middle this year. We are one of the first every year that approves our room and board rates. We do that in mid-spring, and many of our peer institutions do it later, May, June, July, and we actually approved our rates right as the pandemic was beginning. Other schools made different decisions as the pandemic worsened, and so you can see one public institution in Michigan actually dropped their rate by almost 10% last year, in this current year. Other schools had much smaller increases than us, and 5 schools were in the ballpark with us in that 3 to 5% range. And so for the first time, we're above the middle. We think that'll be temporary. Governor Kelly asked last month what we knew about what was likely to happen this year with other public institutions. No one has approved any rates yet, but I did do some benchmarking. It looks like most schools are going to return to that 2 to 4% pace, but there are a few who are going to try to go, flat again. And I think that has to do with trying to recover enrollment at their institutions. So these are just estimates. No one's really committing to what they're doing. I think things are very fluid right now. Next slide, please. So just a couple highlights, things that have happened this year. About half of our buildings were closed this year. We didn't need to operate all of them, and so our 1,500 residents lived in 4 of our facilities. We did have 1 of our 2 cafeterias also closed. We hope to reopen that this fall and have all of our buildings open, except for Atchison Hall. We're not projecting occupancy to be able to be completely full. We're hoping that our occupancy may be around 80%, and so Atchison may stay closed. We can open it if we have demand. That would be easily done and would be great. We're just not anticipating it. I've mentioned before that Chatsworth Suites, which was completed, its renovation was completed last fall, but then not opened for students, will be the new home this fall for our new freshman year residential experience, which we're calling FIRE. That's going to be a great program, and we're actually providing some housing scholarships to help students who may want to live and have that first year experience in that program. And then the addition to Towers Cafe also finished this year and was not open, so it will be used in the fall. Next slide, please. So each year when we look at room and board rates, there are factors that influence that thought process, and we're always very cognizant of the cost of attendance. How much those students who want to live or dine on campus cost and how it fits into the total cost of being a Wayne State student. We know that we do not have a housing requirement, and so all of the decision to live or dine with us is the students. There's no compulsion there, and so we have to provide every day of value that students want to buy and want to participate in, both in terms of housing and dining environments and also costs. The housing partnership, in 2017, the Board of Governors delegated the responsibility to set room and board rates to the partnership for any annual increases at or below 3%. The board continues to have responsibility for approval of any rate that goes above 3%. The partnership documents also require that in the first 5 years of the partnership that the room rate be at least 3%. And so you'll see on a future slide that we are again setting that at 3%, and it was done by the Executive Committee of Partnership on March 9th. And then for dining, we always really look at expenses related to labor cost drivers from inflation. So next slide, please. So this is just to show you on the far right that all of the housing rates increased at 3% or less. So there is no board action required for either our residence halls and furnished apartments or the next slide, which is our unfurnished apartments. We did want to share again that as of our December 2019 housing market demand study, our unfurnished apartments are still a value for our students, both as we compare against our national peers and also locally in the local Midtown market, that some of our rates are as much as 25% below the market in Midtown. Our rates have been going up about 3% a year, and Midtown has been going up, anywhere from 4 to 6% a year. And so we continue to offer a good value especially in apartments, which are most impactful on our graduate students, our international students, our students with families. Next slide, please. So let's go on then and talk about dining a little bit. And last month I had the opportunity to come and visit with you and talk about how we were working on setting the dining rate as an information item. So this is a slide you saw last month. Just to remind you, we really re-envisioned the entire dining program going into fall 20, and then the pandemic interfered with our ability to fully implement all of those changes. And so the items you see on this slide and the next one in red are major changes to the dining program. That was a very iterative process, lots of student input as we worked with our partner Aramark to kind of reshape the dining program. Next slide, please. One of those major changes was the meal plans themselves, where we added more Warrior Dollars, and then we're building a program to give students more flexibility about where to spend them. So as we went into the fall, unfortunately, when occupancy was low and we were not on campus, many of our dining locations were closed. And so students were not able to use the Warrior Dollars that they had just gotten from their meal plans. So on a temporary basis, we converted many of those Warrior Dollars to the other currency on campus, which is called a one-card dollar. That's a debit card that's on the ID card. So we put a lot of the meal plan dollars over into that system, which allowed students to have much greater flexibility. We have an off-campus network of vendors dining, especially that takes our one card. So not only can students use their one card on campus, but they can use it in the off-campus network, and that provided students more of that choice. That was a really popular solution this year, such that we've agreed to make that change permanent. And so the meal plans going forward this fall will have components of both Warrior Dollars, which are dining dollars that can be used at dining locations, and a component of one-card dollars, so that every student that buys a meal plan will have both of those and continue to have that additional flexibility. And then there are other things we're going to do with catering and retail dining. I touched on those last week. I won't really repeat them for you here. So the next slide, please. So last month when I presented, I showed you this slide, and we were asking for a likely increase for our base programs, which are the top three you see on this slide, of 3.11%. But in the last month, as we've continued to analyze this year's expenditures, because so many of our dining units have been closed, we've not had to perform or spend a lot of our anticipated maintenance dollars. So we identified about $35,000 that we're able to roll forward into next year's maintenance budget. That allows us to reduce that 3.11 tentative request to this new request now, which is only 2.39%. We thought that was the right thing to do for students, to keep that increase as low as possible. And you'll see that all of the rates for all the meal plans and the optional plans are now all under 3%. And that was not true last month when I presented them to you initially. We still have the cost drivers in dining to be concerned about. There is competition. We're trying right now to rehire staffing back up for fall with our food service workers and our supervisory staff. And it's a tough sell because everyone's trying to reopen and there's lots of competition in the market. So there certainly hasn't been any reduction in entry labor rates, for example, or in what we need to pay our supervisory staff. And then certain commodities, as happens every year, are outpacing inflation. I've listed some of those here for you. So in total then, next slide, please. I just wanted to show you this slide. And last month I confused you with two slides that look like this. And so I've summarized it a little differently for you. And on the right, what you see, the upper right graph, this is from fall of 2019, so 2 years ago, compared to this coming fall. And this is all of the meal plan prices, those benchmark prices of other Michigan publics. And you'll see that in fall of 2019, we were below the midpoint in both total benchmark rates, and then the lower graph is the graph of those campuses that offer unlimited access dining, which is one of our options, where a student can come and go in dining as often as they want every day. And you can see that we had 2 years ago, we had good value in dining. Well, the rate we're asking for this fall, for that base rate, $4,280, 2 years later, is still lower than the midpoint that was in 2019. And so we think our dining program continues to offer great value for our students compared to other Michigan publics. Next slide. So then in total, our new benchmark freshman room and board package increase, assuming the 2.39% in dining and the 3% in housing, will increase $296 to $10,992, which is an overall 2.77% increase in that benchmark rate. The upper class rate is also in that same range, 2.78. Upper class students have more choices than first year students do in terms of other housing options they could choose or lower cost meal plans. So that is a typical rate, but students have cheaper options than that. And then again, just to remind, the 3% room rate was set by the partnership with the board's permission and does not require action. But what I am asking for today, and you have in your packet, the resolution on those new dining rates for the 21-22 academic year, and I would ask for your approval.
One, Tim, if Corvius continues to increase at their max of 3% through the next, how many years is it that this runs? 3 more years?
The mandatory 3% is for the first 5 years, so this coming fall and 2 more, and then after that, it'll be fully negotiable.
By the time we get through that period, where it is fully negotiable, at the rate that the other schools are raising theirs, we're going to be one of the most expensive housing facilities in the state. Is that not true?
I don't believe that will be the case. We're not that far. I mean, there's about half the schools are all bunched in the middle with about I don't have it in front of me, but a $300 or $400 spread. I mean, everyone's kind of bunched up in the middle, and then you have the low outliers at Grand Valley and the high outlier at U of M, and everyone else is kind of in that middle range. Certainly, we need to pay attention to the benchmark rate, and remember, this is a room and board rate. So we can help mitigate those expenses by being very careful about our dining rates. One of the reasons we continued to work on that rate, and lowered it for this presentation today, is just to try to mitigate that total impact for students. Because first-year students who live on campus also must buy a meal plan. That's not true for every upper-class student housing option, but it is for first-year students. So we do have to be careful. And I think what, some of our public school peers have been more greatly impacted by the pandemic in terms of finances than we have. And it's just inevitable that those low rates are going to have to change. A school who tries to move forward at 2 or 3 years at 0%, they're either getting subsidies from their general funds, which many of our competitors do every year, the smaller schools especially, or they're draining their reserves, which is just a portend for problems into the future. So we know we need to pay very close attention to that. Our goal is to stay in the middle, whether we're a couple $100 above or below the middle. That's kind of our target every year.
Right, I can understand that. Would you, and thank you for that information, would you remind me why we see a proposal that that indicates first-year students and not other students?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Governor Keller.
I thought I looked at one of your slides here, seemed to indicate first year dining rates.
It's for all students, I believe, correct?
Right. So Rebecca, if you could go back to the dining rates, the rate structure kind of builds. If we go forward a couple slides, this slide. So first-year students must buy one of the top 3 plans. Other housing residents can buy any of the 5 plans. And so there are block plans that are much less expensive, obviously, than the top 3 plans. Philosophically, as well as financially, the dining program is built around creating that dining environment for new students, as well as the housing environment to help them, with their transition to college. And so we do require that they buy meal plans, but they have a choice. Last year, one of the big changes we made was that we priced all 3 of those the same, because it was very confusing for students and parents to figure out of the different styles of dining. The Warrior Pass, which is the unlimited access, the Weekly 15, which is 15 meals a week, or the Block, which is a group of meals that you can use when you want, that would give convenience and flexibility to students. But we do it at the same price so they don't have to try to figure out without experience which one's right for them. This also allows them during the meal change process we have every semester to move among the plans pretty seamlessly. So if they pick one and that style doesn't really work for them, they can move into another plan.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the proposed dining and housing rates for fiscal year 2021 and 22. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, you have that, Julie? Who made
I believe that was Mr. Beavers. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, all
And then
in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please
Aye.
say. Okay, the ayes have it. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the School of Medicine tuition rate. Dean Schweitzer.
Great, thank you. Rebecca, you put up the slides first. Okay, the next slide, please. When trying to set the rate for next year, the first thing we took into consideration is this year being year 0, what are the additional expenses for next year? And a lot of the expenses, about a half of them or 2/3 of them, are related to preparation for the LCME site survey, which is scheduled for 23 months from now. And as you know, fortunately, we're now in full accreditation without any monitoring or citations. But one key thing is that there's 8 open department chair positions. Now, most of these department chair positions, with the exception of one, do not have a clinical practice, so they would be part-time positions. So I'm conservatively estimating that cost as $900,000 to fund 8 of these at a part-time basis. Now, because of what happened with Henry Ford and Michigan State, we have 40 students who have been displaced from training at Michigan State. And we have to get 2 partners for each of them, because each partner usually takes about 20, 24 students. Our base rate to pay each of those partners at a minimum is $200,000. So that's $400,000, which gives the cost for LCME preparation to be 1.3. This last year of the AAUP contract, the increase is approximately $750,000 in faculty expenses and another $100,000 in equity expenses. Next slide, equity adjustments. Now, if we look at what schools did last year, and last year, you remember the board approved a 4.5% in-state increase and a 2.5% out-of-state increase. Last year, 90 out of the 140 schools had an increase of in-state, which was slightly lower than ours at 3.24%, and approximately the same number had an increase of out-of-state tuition higher than ours at 3.8%. So if you take the two together, our last year's increase was basically in line with most of the increases of the other double AMC medical schools in the country. Next slide, please. And if you compare our current medical school tuition with the other medical schools in Michigan, our in-state tuition is significantly lower than any other medical school in Michigan, University of Michigan being the second lowest for in-state. But our out-of-state tuition is basically in the middle of the pack for out-of-state tuition within the state of Michigan. And notably, our out-of-state tuition is higher than a national average and even higher than some of our private school competitors. Now, the next lowest in-state tuition was University of Michigan, and just notably, they had a larger increase than we had last year for in-state tuition. Next slide, please. So to kind of reiterate those points, our in-state tuition is the lowest by far of all the 6 medical schools in Michigan, and our out-of-state tuition is basically in the middle of the 6 medical schools, allopathic medical schools in Michigan. And by national standards, our in-state tuition is significantly below the mean. We're at the 37th percentile. But as I mentioned above or previously, our out-of-state tuition, in my perception, has gradually become non-competitive. And now we're at the 69th percentile nationwide. And the orange bar on this slide is the national median, and all the gray boxes are the other medical schools in Michigan. And this just in a graphic form shows you that we're the lowest in-state in Michigan, and we're below the national average by approximately $4,000. Next, please. But out-of-state tuition, again, the orange bar is the national average, and the national average, we're about $3,000 above the national average for out-of-state tuition. And we're significantly lower than Michigan State, but University of Michigan and Oakland are lower than us for out-of-state tuition. Next slide, please. So the tuition is part of the importance, but the greater importance is really how much debt our students have. And remember that our students come from, particularly the medical students, come from a lower socioeconomic background. We have among the highest percentage of Pell Grant recipients, I believe certainly in the state and among the highest in the country. But even considering that, our average debt load is the second lowest of the 6 medical schools in Michigan. And again, by national standards, we're well below the median. And I'll show that in a graphic form in a minute. Next slide, please. So this is the orange bar, again, is the national median for medical student debt. And you can see we're the second lowest in Michigan, with only University of Michigan being lower than us. And we remain approximately $23,000 less than the mean. And we also have among the highest percentage of students who graduate with no debt. I think we're at 27% graduate with no debt. So not only do we have a large percentage of students who have no debt, those students who do have debt are the second lowest in the state and significantly lower than the national median. Next slide, please. So our gap is approximately $2.2 million a year in increased expenses. So roughly 2/3 of that are to prepare for the LCME survey in 2 years from now, but we have to prepare for that now. And 1/3 of that is because of contractually related salary increases. So I'm requesting a tuition increase much lower than last year. So it's a 1.9% tuition increase. So even if none of the other medical schools in Michigan increase their tuition at all, which is almost impossible, we will remain the lowest in Michigan for in-state. I'm requesting a very modest out-of-state tuition increase of 0.3% because our in-state tuition remains extremely competitive, both regionally and nationally, but our out-of-state tuition is non-competitive. We're in the middle of the board for Michigan. We're above the national average. And as I stated previously, we're actually higher than what I consider peer private institutions. And the two I look most carefully at are Drexel and Jefferson in Pennsylvania, because they're of similar size, slightly smaller, but of similar size. And we're about $7,000 a year in tuition higher than they are. As a private school versus our out-of-state tuition. Now, the sum of this would be leave us still with $1 million of expenses that I'm not asking students to pay for. My intention is to cut the budget even further to get rid of half or 3/4 of that deficit and try and backfill the rest of the deficit by enhancing PPAP relationships with some of these newer partners. And I'm quite confident I'll find that additional $1 million so that of the additional expenses, the school is taking about half of them and we're only asking the students to take the other half. Next slide, please. So this is the formal recommendation, which I can't read, but it's a 1.9% increase for in-state student tuition and fees and a 0.3% increase for out-of-state tuition and fees. And you guys all know me well enough. I'm happy to entertain questions and suggestions.
Okay, thank you, Dean Schweitzer. Colleagues on the committee, the floor is open to you to ask any questions.
Yes, Governor Mosquito.
Yeah, Dr. Schweitzer, I know that you're changing the structure of reimbursement for our faculty, and I don't know the exact details of how you changed it, but what cost savings are you going to incur by changing the reimbursement schedule for our faculty?
So the changes for the faculty, we started out with the MD faculty, and that process began in the fall, in October, and will be finished approximately a year from now. And that is not general funds. That was special funds. That was a salary reimbursement account that had been accumulating deficits, which is not good fiscal management, but that doesn't have an effect on the general funds budget. There'll be changes going forward that we haven't formalized yet that will deal with some of the existing structural deficit. None of this tuition increase is meant to address some of the existing structural deficits that we're trying to gradually chip away at.
So where does the 2.2 million deficit arise from compared to last year?
So these are new expenses. This would be the anticipated increase in expenses. So 750,000 is negotiated contractually required salary increases. 100,000 is equity adjustments. To new chair recruitments in terms of not recruitment packages, and 400,000 is the base they do clinical partners to house the 40 students who will be displaced sooner than this time next year from Henry Ford to we have to find a place for them to land because there'll be Michigan State students, unfortunately, in their seats next year.
Okay, Professor Beal. I'm sorry, Governor Basuto, were you finished?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Next, we have Professor Beal.
Yes, Mark, could you display the resolution again, because we haven't seen it, the Senate members, so it would be good to be able to read it. And
it's a 1.9% increase.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I just wanted to actually be able to read the text of the resolution. Okay. And the other question I had, well, if you can keep that up for a minute, but let me ask the other question. It was about the equity adjustment. Is that a faculty equity adjustment or an administrative equity adjustment number?
Those are faculty equity adjustments.
Thanks.
Faculty and staff, I should say.
Yeah, but if you could just leave this slide up for a while we entertain the next question from Ms. Jasmine Cole.
Thanks, Brian.
Vice Chair, I think I saw at one of the bottom of the documents $2,500 repeat course fee. Is that standard, or would that be additional?
That's certainly no change in what we've had before.
Okay, we just weren't sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes.
Thanks. My question is from our tuition increase last year, was there an impact on our yield of medical students? Were there medical students who chose not to come to Wayne because of the increase?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, Governor. I struggle with that. And part of the problems that we have is I remember very well having this meeting last year. So by this weekend, the medical students have to make their final decision about which acceptances to take. And because Wayne sets its increases right during that week, it does put us at a competitive disadvantage because the other schools are going to set them 3, 4, 5 weeks from now. And I would propose next year we should do this in May rather than in April, as to not have a perceptual change for the students. Now, it's very hard to know what factors go into the yield. Is the news about the latest happenings of the DMC an issue that changes our yield? Is it the change in tuition? Is it any other news media stories? So I'll be honest, I don't know. And the reason I'm proposing an increase that's at the most half of what I believe our new expenses are going to be specifically is to hopefully not affect the yield, to do my best to keep this at the smallest amount that I think is reasonable to not affect the yield. And you have an excellent question. I just don't know the answer.
Okay, thank you. And just another question in terms of the difference between the resident increase and the non-resident increase. And obviously the resident increase is greater. Yes. And I understand from before that was because of the LCME concerns about the non-resident increases being or non-resident debt being too high. Is that correct? Or can you just explain the differential?
So the school is about 40% out of state versus 60% in state. And one reason I'm proud to serve this school is I believe we're the state university for the citizens of Michigan, when the other medical schools are state university for citizens of other states other than Michigan. But interestingly enough, about 40%, more than 40% of the out-of-state students end up staying in Michigan for residency. And where you stay for residency is really the best predictor of where you're going to end up practicing. So I do think we need to still be a predominantly in-state university. I think that's part of our mission and extremely important. But we do need out-of-state students, particularly as the population of Michigan ages. And so we don't want to become non-competitive for out-of-state students where we end up getting maybe a lower down our list for out-of-state students. We haven't done the calculations for this year, which we will do. But if a private medical school, which is roughly a peer medical school, has $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 lower tuition than we have as a public medical school, then I do think the tuition is at least out of jive for the market. So I didn't think it was right to not have an out-of-state tuition increase. But I think the out-of-state tuition has become disjointed from the in-state tuition, where we remain an inexpensive school for in-state, but we're not an inexpensive school for out-of-state. That's partly related to debt, partly related.
Mark, I think you've frozen. Or I've frozen.
Yeah, it was Mark.
Okay.
But
Oh.
While we're waiting for him to return, do you want me to turn the page on the proposal?
Yeah, we've seen it now. You can.
Linda, is
Mr. Chairman,
I had a chance to read it. That was what I needed. That was that first page.
Okay.
Julie,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question, please?
I just was at the worst possible moment. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mark, can I just ask Julie before you ask your question? Did we get this resolution?
Yes, you did. It was attached to the emails to the board and to the faculty and student reps. So everybody got it.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed 30 seconds if there was something else.
Well, so I have a question for at least three people. One would be Rebecca, one would be President Wilson, and one would be Julie Miller. Is it possible to do what the dean has asked, and that is put this on the schedule in next year for a May meeting?
So we have a meeting at the end of June, and we have a meeting at the beginning of May. So it would be up to Dean Schweitzer which of those two meetings he would like to use for this purpose.
Yeah, so next year, the beginning of May meeting would work.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
my
Okay.
argument
Thank you.
is, yeah, my argument is we're going to make this announcement, whatever the board decides to do. It's going to go on the media. And then the University of Michigan and Michigan State haven't made their tuition increases yet. So we just look bad almost no matter what we do. It puts us at a disadvantage.
It can be
Governor Gaffney, in the past, we've done it during this time at the request of the medical school at the time because they felt that they wanted to have it before so that the students have some information before having to make their decisions. But obviously, Dean Schweitzer is looking at it differently, and so we can do this whenever we want to do this, and so May is fine.
Yeah, the end of June is too late is the problem, and we didn't have a May meeting this year. So if you back it up, this is the last possible time we could approve it and have it ready in time for the tuition bills to go out in the summer.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So we want to not take action on the tuition.
No.
Okay.
You do need to take action today. The question was whether or not for next year, should the schedule for considering this be different? But you do need to have action on this item today.
Okay. All right, are there any more questions from the committee?
Julie, I can't find the email with the resolution.
It was attached to the email you got last Friday with all of the other materials for the board. Those two documents were attached to that email 1 week ago.
Got it. I see it.
Okay. All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the proposal for the fiscal year 2022 School of Medicine tuition rates.
So moved.
Support.
That's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
No.
Okay, the ayes have it. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the 400 Mack Avenue by Associate Vice President Davenport.
Good morning, everyone. I'll provide a very brief overview and then ask Dr. Schweitzer to provide additional details.
Yeah, sure.
Great. So the building currently has 41 exam rooms that offer pediatric primary care and OBGYN services. This project before us will convert the remaining office space into 24 exam rooms. PEPAP is the source for funding for the project. And Dr. Schweitzer, if you'd like to provide additional details.
Sure, thank you. Several of the governors provided some of their valuable time to take a tour of the building. The genesis of this is basically initially related to the Children's Hospital situation and the need to have a teaching pediatric practice for the medical school. And the whole first floor is basically pediatrics, a large pediatric aid center, and then a working pharmacy. So one thing when I came is I believed that we needed more interprofessional education, and we needed the School of Medicine to become less insular. So we used some of the construction costs that were initially allocated towards this to build a teaching pharmacy on the first floor. And to my knowledge, it's one of the few, if maybe the only one, where it's a university-run teaching pharmacy in a university-run multi-specialty clinic. And there are 3 rooms in that pharmacy where medication counseling and medication optimization can be done. So since we put the pediatric aid center in there after it was basically evicted from Children's Hospital, and we put the pharmacy in there, we ended up with less space for offices that were originally envisioned. And now we go to the second floor where we have used mostly medicine, some surgery, and some OB. But we'd like to put psychiatry, urology, gastroenterology, a bunch of other specialties in the building. There's raw space that just needs to be outfitted. And it would provide not only clinical space, but in my opinion, more importantly, teaching space for medical students, nursing students, PA students, other allied health students. So it really would be the ideal outpatient setting for both medical care as well as education. And the reason for PEPAP funds is to optimize treatment and services potentially for Medicaid patients. The pediatric first floor is greater than 90% Medicaid, and overall we're north of 50% Medicaid. So it's well in keeping with what the state believes this dollar should be optimally used for. So we're asking for additional funds to finish out that space, to compensate to some degree for the loss of space because of pediatric aids in the pharmacy, but mostly to optimize it so that there's enough space to have a reasonable practice as well as a reasonable location for teaching. And the last point I want to make is that, I said this to several of the governors, every crisis is an opportunity. And it's made us rethink pediatric training, that we were overly dependent on inpatient training, and we were probably not optimally training our students because many of them would do rotations that were overwhelmingly subspecialty and tertiary care. And if they were students who were going into a field that wasn't relevant for, our feeling as educators was that the time would be better spent learning more of the basics of pediatrics than how to manage post-operative neurosurgical patients. Again, happy to take questions. And again, thank those who came to visit for your time.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Colleagues, do you have any questions?
I have one, or I guess a comment. Dean Schweitzer, I understand that what you've told us is that this building then would be used for the education of students as well as for other purposes, and that it's a more important use now than we'd originally or earlier thought. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Governor Keller.
And I also asked you when I visited, and I thought it was interesting, you indicated to me that if we approve this build out, that you can fill it immediately. This isn't like a long-term project you're talking about, but an immediate need. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. We could fill it immediately.
Thank you.
I think I saw Governor Basuito.
Yeah. Can you just update us on how this has evolved, this building? And the reason why I say that is, some of the last communications I've had, it was actually from Bill Decatur, said that UPG held the general lease and they were taking 10,000 square feet, and that pediatrics was going to sublease, Wayne was going to sublease for pediatrics 45,000 square feet, and then generally over 3 to 5 years, Wayne Peds was going to take over the whole thing and relieve Wayne from any other lease obligation there. I know things have evolved, but can you just tell me where we stand now in terms of, is it a lease, is it a purchase? If it is a lease, who leases, who subleases, and how much for each group?
Yeah, it's quite confusing. So as it stands now, Wayne Health, formerly known as UPG, leases the building from the landlord. And then Wayne State University subleases the parts of the building that are not used by UPG. And then we lease them to Wayne Peds. The building will be purchased shortly by the university. And then at that point, we'll sublease the Wayne Peds space to Wayne Peds, the pharmacy space to pharmacy, to the School of Pharmacy, and the general UPG Wayne Health space to Wayne Health UPG, the Horizon space to the pediatric aides. That's as it stands now, and that's how it stands, how it will stand in a month or so.
So we will be the owner, and we will lease to the other entities, is what you're saying?
Yes, I believe that's what will happen in about a month.
Yeah, and this is similar, if you're familiar with Toland Park, the Toland Park building, it's similar to the arrangement we have with Toland Park, where we control the building at the university level and lease out the parts that are used for clinical care. But we also do research in that building and education. And so those pieces, the university is responsible for. And this building will be similar to that in the way we divide it up.
Is Wayne Peds, it's separate 501c3 as
Correct.
Wayne Medicine?
Correct. And then because the building is so full, they actually moved all the Wayne Health administrative offices out of there to clear up that space for clinical purposes.
So,
that's how big.
So do you anticipate that the net expense to the university, once this is up and running, will be zero then?
Mr. Davenport, do you want to comment on that?
I'll jump into that, and the answer to that is we're not sure yet, because we need to look at market rental rates and, square footage and how it's divided up and, what affordability and also how much we as a university, for these educational uses, obviously, that's our share of the building. And so that will be our expense. And we're really just doing those pro formas right now.
And now that we have Mr. Davenport on, do we know what's happened to the value of commercial real estate in Midtown in light of the pandemic? It seems like there's been a flight out of the city again because of what's going on. Has it changed? I mean, you probably don't know the answer, but what would you anticipate?
So the answer to that depends on who you're asking, right? So we do get very indifferent answers. There's a spirit of optimism, of course, coming from leadership around Midtown Inc. But we know that the pandemic is really putting a sour spot, if you will, on occupancy rates in commercial office buildings. And of course, we're in the red zone right now. So it's very difficult to say, Governor Basuito, as to where this stands right now. But when you look at the economy in general, it's moving. It's moving at a decent pace. But commercial real estate is taking a hit right now.
And let me add one more point. So as of Friday, I let several of the governors know this, that DMC summarily stated that no students other than third and fourth year medical students can be on that campus. And we had PA students that were about to graduate and were X amount of hours short of graduating. And thank God we had a pediatric practice on an outpatient basis for them to fall into, to be able to fulfill their obligations to be able to graduate on time. So however this was originally planned, I think it's coalesced and evolved into something that's of pretty vital importance, I think, for all the health professions' educational mission, at least in my opinion.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another question, or a couple of questions just related to the ownership of the portion that's being constructed. And thank you for the tour, Dean Schweitzer. It was really enlightening to see everything that was happening there. So the part that is being constructed, that is, I understand, a number of clinical programs that are going in there. And Wayne State is the lessee of that part. We have leased that.
When this is constructed, assuming that the ownership doesn't change, since UPG or Wayne Health is the leasee of any space, of the total space, and then subleases back to the university space it doesn't use, then Wayne Health would remain the lessee. When the building is purchased, then Wayne Health would lease it from the university at the market rate.
Okay.
I understood your question.
I guess I'm just trying to understand if Wayne State has the responsibility for the lease that we're building out now.
Rebecca, do you want to answer that?
So right now we don't own the building. We sublease a significant portion of it, right? The particular space that's going to be built out was formerly occupied by Wayne Health for their administrative functions. It was office space, okay? They are now occupying the other half of that floor, which is clinical space, okay? And we have not switched any of the accounting for which space they're in versus which space we're in versus which space is vacant. And so we're in the process of doing that work right now to figure that out. But they have vacated the office space and it's ready for renovation into clinical space. If nothing changes from where we are now, we sublease, and I can't remember the percentage, but let's call it 80% of that building from Wayne Health. And we would probably change that sublease so that we're subleasing less space from them, or would lease it back to them because they'll be using it. Okay. But when we buy the building, which is the plan, and that is in process right now, and the purchase would likely be completed before this construction is finished. When we buy the building, then we will negotiate a new lease with both Wayne Health and Wayne Pediatrics, separate leases for each of them.
Okay.
That will take, and what part of the reason we're a little uncertain about this is we really are trying to do the analysis to figure out, when the dust settles, so to speak, quite literally, in this building, who's occupying which space, and what does that represent as a percentage of the occupancy of the building, right? And how do we divide that up among the various entities, including which pieces are university responsibility because of the activity that's being performed in that space.
Okay, and just a related question to the PEDS question about whether we will recoup our costs for the space that we're, renting out to the clinical groups, because obviously it's not our activity, it's the clinical folks. So why should we pay for that?
Right. And so our intention is to have market-based leases with the entities other than the university that are using the building.
Okay. And that's the similar structure with Toland Park. That's how we operate.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep, Governor Pizzuto.
In deals like this, are we subject to Stark laws in terms of pursuing fair market value?
So we're not benefiting from their activity in this building the way a hospital would. So I would, and I know that Lou's area of expertise is not necessarily Stark, but I would ask Lou to see if he agrees with me on that. But I don't think we have the same kind of a relationship that a hospital would have with a practice group.
Yeah, my understanding of Stark is not the level of some other areas of expertise that I might bring here. But my understanding is we're simply the landlord here, or the lessee. And so, no, I don't think we're going to have a Stark law issue or an anti-kickback issue. Our profit or lack of profit is not tied to productivity or referral.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the funding request for 400 Mack Avenue.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay. It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. Let's move on to parking structure 1 repairs.
Very good. Thank you, Governor Barnhill. Parking structure 1 is located on the north end of campus, across from the law school, and to the south, and of course our administration building to the east. So it's essentially on the corner of Palmer and Cass. Built in 1965, this is the oldest parking structure on campus. This project is a culmination of a multi-year restoration effort, and this project will effectively complete major repairs to concrete decks, the concrete columns and stairwells within the garage, and also the top floor will be recoated with a waterproofing membrane. We have nearly 2,000 spaces in the garage, so we will be able to limit construction in the garage to about half of the spaces. So about half of the garage will be open on a regular basis during construction. Construction will begin at the end of May, and we're expecting to be finished in early September. With the exception of the work on the top floor, weather really shouldn't be an issue here because the restoration work is fairly protected. So any questions on this project?
Colleagues? Okay, let's just move for a vote. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the request for the repairs to parking structure 1.
So moved.
Support.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. Let's move on to the Scott Hall updates.
All right, thank you, Governor Barnhill. Once again, I'll provide a very brief overview and invite Dr. Lanier to provide additional details. In January of 2020, the board approved funding for the design phase of the Vivarium project, which called for the renovation of the full 10,000 square feet of space and associated HVAC improvements. While in the midst of the pandemic and mindful of uncertain economic conditions, we elected to scale back the project to a 6,000 square foot project and associated HVAC improvements. That modification resulted in the board's approval in June of last year of $3.96 million project. Then, after a comprehensive review of the modified version from a programming and HVAC perspective, along with the new potential to leverage external funding support, we found that the complete project scope, or perhaps the original scope, is in fact the best approach for this effort. So let me invite Dr. Lanier to offer additional thoughts.
Thank you, Rob. I don't have a lot to add, other than the fact that this is a project. You know, if you look back, this building was constructed in 1971, and there was renovation of the Vivarium in 77, 87, and in 97, and it hasn't been touched in a long time. And there's been a lot of changes in animal care, animal use, best practices during this period. So when I first came on board in 2014, this was one item on the radar screen, and we began working on this with the faculty and deans, and had external evaluation over a year, an internal team involved in design 2018, 2019. And when we got to the point and made the decision of a compromise project during the pandemic, it sort of, as Rob mentioned, led us certainly less than satisfactory relative to the need. And I'm glad we have a chance to revisit it with the potential for additional funds through the federal stimulus funds going forward. I think it's a long overdue project and will serve us well going forward.
I think if I can add one more thing too, which is that the idea was always to do the full project, but to do it in stages. And as it turns out, after the analysis, that would have been actually much more costly to do it that way rather than doing it all now.
Yeah, and I might add to President Wilson's comments that mobilizing, in two separate phases would absolutely be additive to costs, and unnecessarily so.
Also more disruptive to the investigators who are using animals in that facility.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions or comments?
I have a question. When I was in my early years on the board, I remember there being requests made of our board that we see to it that there was a cutback on the experimentation with dogs in the vivarium, and we were told that that probably would happen, that it would be cut back or eliminated. Can anyone give me the present status of that experimentation?
I can provide you some information on that, Governor Kelly. So the facility in Scott Hall doesn't involve any dogs. So the renovation work there doesn't involve any dogs. The work with dogs has progressively decreased over the last few years. The projects that do involve dogs are those that have gone through review by the National Institutes of Health through peer review purposes with mechanisms with a clearly defined outcome and benefit. At the same time, they're looking for other pathways for use of alternative models going forward. So that the activity has declined. Activity does continue to a limited extent. The Scott Hall Vivarium doesn't involve any dogs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the request for the Scott Hall Vivarium updates.
So moved.
Support.
Okay. All in favor of the request, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. We'll move on to the next item, Mr. Davenport, which is the capital project summary.
Thank you again, Governor Barnhill. All right, so on the construction project updates, I'll highlight 3 projects. Hillberry Gateway, the project is now in the 30% completion range for phase 1, which is the new building. August 2022 is the completion date, and we're holding tight to that date. Again, August of next year. It's a bit tight, but we're holding. Phase 2, which would be the renovation of the original Hillberry Theater, is expected to be completed in July of 2023. And we are currently within budget on Hillberry Gateway. Regarding the arena, the project is on time and within budget. All appears to be going very well. In fact, we had a very nice walkthrough a few weeks back with the Pistons, President Wilson, that the athletic director, Rob Fournier, put together. And it's coming along quite nicely. Regarding State Hall, the RFQ for architectural and engineering services and the construction manager piece has been put to the street. We are going through those submissions. We've got a lot of activity, in fact. 12 architectural firms, A&E firms, and 10 construction managers have expressed interest. We will down select those groupings by the middle of May. And then we will issue an RFP for the down-selected firms again a few days after. So the week of May 17th, we'll have that down selection out to the street. That RFP will be out for about a month, and we expect to award an A&E firm and construction manager by the week of June the 5th. Now from there, the process of schematic design, design development, and construction documents will commence, and we expect that process to take somewhere between 9 and 12 months. So what that means is that we will return to this group in June of next year to request full funding for the project. We will know then what the full project budget will be. Construction would begin just a month after that approval. And so at this point, we're expecting completion for the State Hall renovation to be in the July of 2023 range. And as design and construction, actually as design development continues, our completion dates will become more firm as we move along. And one final note, the McGregor elevator design is complete. There's a date error on that item. So contractor will mobilize on that project by the end of July, and we expect completion for that elevator renovation by the middle of November of this year. So any questions on the projects?
You know, Rob, before you take questions, I'm just going to mention when I asked Rob what Hillberry was looking like, you know, what does that amount of completion look like? He invited me to look at a live cast that the college has put up. You can actually go on their website and watch the construction live. So anyone who is interested in seeing that, it's a lot of fun to watch.
I have one question on the State Hall renovation. I don't remember being told what the likely range of expense will be to us to actually renovate the building once we've done the design.
So we have established originally a budget of somewhere in the $80 to $85 million range. And we're not exactly sure where we're going to land there, but we do believe that we will be in a position more favorable in the $80 million range, but we'll see. It's going to take some time. When we get through the schematic design development phase, that will become more clear. And certainly when construction documents are complete, then we'll know exactly what the budget is. So as we go along in our future Board of Governor meetings here, I will provide quick updates on our progress and where that number is trending toward.
Thank you. I know you've probably told us in the past, but because it's our major teaching building, classroom building, I know. It's old also. And have you ever given us an idea what the alternative would be to renovating it, which would be, I think?
I would need to do that before I threw that out, but I'm just going to throw, at least a third above the cost of renovation, if not higher.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so next, colleagues, I'll give the floor to Professor Beal to ask her question, and just given the time, after her question is answered, then we'll move on to the final item. I'm just going to open up the floor for any general questions since we have all had the opportunity to review the purchasing, etc.
This is just a really quick question, Brian and Rob. I assume obviously the cost of the renovation will include a very first-class technological upgrade, for all of those kinds of things. Does it also include updating all the furnishings? In other words, we wouldn't try to use some of that old furnishing for the new classrooms, or is that a separate charge?
Yeah, so Professor Beal, that's a 100% yes. Yeah, so we call it FF&E and furniture, fixtures, and equipment. That is absolutely included in the entire renovation as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Any questions on the purchasing exception?
Okay.
Okay, colleagues, I'm not going to adjourn.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Governor Barnhill. I know that time is of the essence here, but I think we've been at it for a couple of hours, and maybe just a few minutes for a bio break might be in order. I do want to also just mention before, if I could just comment, I want to thank the board. We tackled some difficult issues this morning, and one in particular, had a lot of history behind it, and however, whatever the issues were that brought us to this point, and we're at this point now, and the decision that was made by the entire board was the right decision for the university and for the medical school. And so I just felt that I needed to say that and to thank members of the board for their support. So moving on then to student affairs, if we can just take 2 minutes for a bio break.
Say 11:15. Does that work?
That's fine. Yeah, 11:15. It's now 11:12. That'd be great. And then
Well,
when we
Governor Stancato may wish
Why don't
longer.
we make it 11:20?
okay, well,
11.
Governor Stancato is the chair of the next meeting, so she says 11:20. So we'll reconvene at 11:20. Thank you.
Governor Stancato?
Here.
Here. Governor Boswito?
Here.
Governor Land?
Here.
Governor Kelly? Governor Gaffney?
Here.
Nita Simon?
Here.
Jane Fitzgibbon?
Here.
Ria Chopra?
Here.
Danishi Betty?
Here.
A quorum is present.
Great. Okay, our first order of business then is to approve the minutes of September 25th, 2020. Can I have a motion?
So move.
Support?
Support.
Jane Fitzgibbon, okay. All in favor?
I'm sorry, it's Governor Gaffney. Unfortunately, Jane can't second.
Okay. Okay, thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries then. So Professor Brockmeyer is going to update us on student success, and then Provost Clabo will sort of lead the discussion on the update on the land acknowledgement and also from the Student Senate. So I don't know, Provost Clabo, if you want to start this off before Professor Brockmeyer does it.
So I will just note that this is Associate Provost Brockmeyer, who is the Senior Associate Provost for Student Success, and this is her annual report on student success. I know she has provided for you a lot of detail in the slides, and in order to get us to be respectful of your time commitments, I think Associate Provost Brockmeyer is going to provide a very high-level overview of the information that you've already received. So I will turn it over to her.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's right. Let me just bring up my slides. And do you see the presentation?
Yep, we do.
Very good. Thank you. So yes, as mentioned, this is my annual presentation to the board about student success. I will be sharing with you a very quick update of where we were a year ago with respect to our students' experiences of the pandemic, highlight a few of our activities and campus collaborations since then, and then give a few high-level student success outcomes, predominantly with respect to our graduation and retention rates. So a year ago, faculty members in our departments of economics and sociology did a campus survey of our undergraduate students and found at that time quite a serious impact of the COVID crisis on our students and their well-being, as would be expected, given the impact on all of us. Some of that data is presented here. I'm proud of the way that our campus as a whole has responded to that crisis in a very holistic way to support the success of our students. And so a few of the particular ways will include, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble advancing here, 1 second. There we go. In particular, mental health days, calling campaigns to about 1,000 students, predominantly our first-year students, in each of our semesters. We've always considered student success to be a very holistic approach to meeting our students' needs around their learning. And so we've already had support around academic stress, around wellness and sleep and nutrition and their impact on student learning. So the last year has really given us an opportunity to deepen and partner more broadly around those activities in Sleep Week, in our learning communities, and connecting those notions around wellness and the conditions of learning and stress management to how to learn online effectively. A big part of our learning was something, of course, we knew all along, but experienced all of us in a new way, the ways that human connection is essential to student learning and student success. And we were able to learn a lot and deepen and provide that connection in new ways through our first-year seminar study skills course, in our Warrior Vision and Impact program, learning communities, undergraduate research, and so many other ways. One of the key observations was the value of our student peer mentors in the classrooms in ways to help the students in the virtual classrooms feel more connected to each other, to their professors. We really observed that they were lonely, as so many of us are, in not being able to just look to the side and see, hey, did you understand what the professor said there in the way that was happening in the physical classroom? So we broadened and expanded deployment of student peer mentors and other learning assistants in the virtual classroom. A key piece of observation is that 275 of our learning community students, 86% said it was easy to get academic support at Wayne State during the crisis. I feel very proud to say that when students have those connections to other student peer mentors, they find it much easier to get the support that they need. It was also a year to take a look at the fact that the new traditional students are the groups that we would have previously called non-traditional, but of course make up more than the majority of our students today, including adult students and our veteran students, most of whom are adults. Our Warrior Way Back program has continued to grow, and for our veteran students, I'm particularly proud of a new grant that we received that will allow us to deepen our partnership between our Office of Military and Veterans Academic Excellence and our Federal TRIO Veterans Program, which supports college readiness. So we'll be able to support an additional 120 veteran students with deeper wraparound support for all of student success within the context of their veterans experience. Another way that we were able to move forward quite substantially this year has to do with our ability to partner across the campus to monitor data points that might indicate signals of distress or need for our students, deploy both technology and collaborations, human collaborations, to intervene rapidly in more proactive and focused ways. And so, for example, I think we were one of the only students a year ago in March, one of the only universities a year ago to really confirm, when so many campuses went remote and online, really confirm that our students came back in March, and through uses of technology and data to say, yes, our students are engaging. We've built on that in many ways, in many ways, on many data signals. And for example, last fall, we noticed our first year students, who are bearing, I think, in many ways, the brunt of the crisis, were registering for winter at a 20% rate lower than previous years. And we were able to focus and target outreach to them through technology, through nudges, through chats, through advisors across the campus, and narrowed that rate to less than 2% within a couple of weeks. It seemed that students didn't actually realize that it was time to register until we observed that they had fallen behind and pulled out all the stops to connect with them and get them to register. So we're much more able to identify things that are signs of distress, collaborate, and reach out and connect to students where they are than we were a year ago. And so I think one of the few silver linings that we observe is the way that we've pulled together, and that will stay with us and part of our skill set as we go forward. I'll now turn to our graduation and retention rates. This is the data I report on every year, and just for context, we report this data for our first-time full-time students, called our GRS students, those who start in college without having gone to community college or any other institution. But we also have, among our undergraduates, about half who start as transfer students. So this is our most common metric, but only represents part of our student success mission. Our trends for our transfer students have been somewhat similar to these, and I'll come back and say a little bit more about that later. So we report on 6-year, 5-year, and 4-year graduation rates, as well as a second, third, and fourth year retention rates. And these charts show from the beginning of our Student Success Initiative in 2011 to the most recent data, which was reported last fall of 2020. We'll get our next retention and graduation rate data this fall in 2021. So our 6-year graduation rate is now at 52%, up 4 percentage points from last year, and as we know, surpassing our strategic plan goal of 50%. Our 5-year graduation rate also increased since the previous year by 4%, and our 4-year graduation rate up 5%. And so those increases in the 4 and 5-year graduation rate suggest that next year we'll continue to see growth in our 5 and 6-year graduation rate. Retention into year 2 and 3 has continued to grow a little bit. Our retention into year 4 is flat over the previous year. So while we're proud of having met our 50% graduation rate, we can't really say graduation rate goal. We can't really say that we've achieved our goal until we know that every student who comes to our campus is fully participating in the benefits of our improvements over the last decade. And so we have many groups of students who are not yet able to expect to be able to have even a 50% chance of graduating. So we know that our work's not done yet at all with respect to student success. And moving forward, in the interim, and while we approach our next strategic plan, our focus will be on making sure that the groups that you see here and other groups who may have graduation rates less than 50%, our Black students, our Latino students, first gen, low-income students are not here, but low-income students as well, then we move those groups closer to 50% and beyond. Here I'll show the graduation and retention rates for our Black students between 2011 and 2020. 6-year graduation rate was up 1 percentage point for Black students. Our 5-year graduation rate was up a whopping 9%. So we're looking at a very strong cohort and a big boost in our 6-year graduation rate. We hope this fall. Our 4-year graduation rate up 3% for Black students. Our 2nd and 3rd year retention rates for Black students, a similar pattern, and a pullback in our 4th year retention rate for Black students. Drilling down and showing similar results, here I'm looking at Latino students, Asian students, white students, first gen students. I didn't repeat Black student data on this slide because I've just showed it to you, so we can flip back if you want to look at it in the questions. So you can see again, pretty similar patterns of improvement in 6 and 5, and in some groups, significant increases in our 4-year graduation rates. In our retention rates, we see continued growth, especially in 1st to 2nd year and 2nd to 3rd year. But I do want to highlight the first line right here. This is our fall to winter retention for the 2020 class. This is last fall's new students. And so we haven't generally reported on this in the board. It's not a formal outcome, but it was the first chance we really had to get a sense of the impact of the pandemic on our entering students. And so we did see pullback in our retention into winter from fall after just 1 semester. Our registration for fall, next fall for this group is running about comparable to last year. So we don't know that we're going to see a pullback in our retention rate next year. We definitely can see more of an impact of the most recent year students.
Could I ask everyone to mute their mics, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So in moving into retention into the 2nd year, we see more improvements here. We're not seeing it with this breakdown, retention into the third year growing that much, and some pulling back, a mixed pattern on retention into the fourth year. Here I'm breaking it down a little bit more full, by gender. So bringing back, looking at students overall, male students and female students, but also breaking down Black students and Latino students into male and female. We can see a little bit of the gender pattern here. We've seen actually some very interesting things around the impact of COVID on women students. So I'll show you here, for example, if you look at our retention rates for Black male and Black female students into the winter semester, we see a serious, kind of a largish pullback in our Black female first year students. And we actually responded to that with focus groups and listening sessions, and observed just a disproportionate impact of the COVID on, in terms of family demands, family responsibilities, the number of people that even 18, 19-year-old students, especially female students, the broad scope of responsibilities that they had, that they have outside of school, seems to have been exacerbated by the virus, by the pandemic. So again, we're seeing some more pulling back with this first year group, improvements into the second year, a little bit uneven into the third year. And here we again see a little bit of reduction in our retention into the fourth year. So in terms of prognosis of the impact of the pandemic on our retention rates and our graduation rates, I think that we will not see as much of an impact in the numbers as we might be feeling in our lives or observing in the classrooms in terms of the impact on our students. I expect that we'll see continued growth and improvement in our 5- and 6-year graduation rate. I have less certainty about what we'll see in our 4-year graduation rate next year, particularly for students of color. We may see some pulling back there. And then with respect to retention, we will be watching very, very closely our first year students and intervening very, very closely with this group and all of the groups of our first year students, who we sometimes are calling our first year sophomores, who will be coming back to a campus, but also having their first real experience on our campus. So we'll be looking very closely at that group.
So I think are we at the point where we can, I'm just trying to, whether we have time for questions. I don't know if we have time for a lot of questions. There's a lot of information, a lot of data here, but we have time to.
So I will pause.
Questions?
Yes, I have a question. Nada?
Hi, Nada.
Okay, I see. Okay, Nada, question.
Monica, you showed us Black, male, and female. Can we break it down to Apex students over the last 4 years? And then by gender, and the same with the Warrior VIP program?
I don't have that at hand, but we certainly can. The Apex students, that data is available, and VIP students, that data will take a little longer because it's connected with the migration of into STARS, where that data is stored. But we can get that a little bit down the line.
You can send that information.
Yep, we can get that.
Thanks. I don't need it tomorrow.
Thank you. That's great. I won't have it tomorrow, but I will soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions?
I have a question. Just thank you for your presentation. From all of this data that you have, do you see additional long-term programming, and in particular, for students of color, Black students, BIPOC students?
I do. And I see programming, but I also see sort of deepening and expanding of really of the whole campus initiative, of all the campus efforts around success for these students. So first I want to mention, I didn't have time to really mention it during the presentation, but we've seen a big uptick over the last 5 years in terms of our 4-year graduation rate for our Black transfer students. So transfer students graduate at a higher rate after 4 years than our 6-year graduation rate overall. So I'm really happy that we're partnering with Ahmad Ezzedine and other community colleges on an equity transfer initiative to evaluate every aspect of our transfer pathways. The rapid response and the data signal monitoring and the campus collaborations in responding to that will be very much tuned to identifying new needs or rising needs or surfacing needs in for Black students or other students for whom we haven't yet met that 50% goal. So for example, when we notice that decline in winter for Black women students in the first year, members of the campus, many of them staff, jumped up and volunteered very rapidly for 2 or 3 full days of listening sessions with first and second year Black women students. And that's leading into more dedicated sections of our first year seminar course in the fall. And then really across all of the various programming in student success, our learning communities, programs, and this peer support. Each year we focus more carefully on programs that help narrow our educational disparities. Our career services, I didn't get a chance to talk about, but they're receiving new training around multicultural skills as a career strength and partnering with alumni relations to provide mentoring. And that's primarily going to students in our Network and RISE learning communities, as well as VIP students. Our Student Senate is partnering and reached out to us to partner on a 4-year plan initiative to provide documented 4-year degree plans for all academic programs. And that's not programming specifically for Black students or students of color, but it's become really clear that students of color are in many ways the canary in the mine for any of the structural barriers or obstacles that may come along the way. So surfacing and looking very carefully at those pathways will be good for all students, but particularly important to identify the barriers that are making it harder for students of color to graduate. And then on the faculty side, we have seen great programming from the OTL, often in partnership with Chief Diversity Officer and AMSI and student success people on teaching in the diverse classroom and other ways of supporting students of color. I haven't had a chance to share with this group, but our campus has been partnering with the APLU on a faculty mindset project that provides material around syllabus review, the first day in the classroom, and preparing, helping faculty have tools to launch the first day of the first class in a way that is good for all students, but particularly welcoming and equity-minded. And that toolkit, which our campus helped to contribute to, is about to be released. We'll be putting that into place for some classes in the fall and expanding. And then we heard from my good colleague Ahmad Ezzedine about the Global Fellows. And so we're looking for funding and we hope to roll out a faculty fellow program for different aspects of student success with a particular interest on student success as a practice of equity and social justice.
Okay. Thanks. Governor Thompson, did that answer your question?
Sorry, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Monica.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Okay, if not, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Associate Provost, a lot of information and a lot of things moving on. So going really well. So Provost Claiborne, you want to move to the next agenda item. And let me just say that when I saw the item, I didn't realize until I looked at it further that we talked about it ahead of time, update on land acknowledgement resolution. And I kind of mentioned to her that I got excited about it because I actually saw this happen at the Oscars last week. So Provost Claiborne.
So here we are following Hollywood. The next two items are actually items that are the activities of our Student Senate. And every year we say Student Senate has done an excellent job, but this year they've just been outstanding. And Kamali Clora is here to present just a brief update on a resolution that you addressed actually last year. And Kamali's worked with the administration and other members of the Student Senate to make some minor changes to that resolution to make it perhaps a little easier to be implemented across campus. So I'll turn it over to Kamali.
Thank you, Provost Claiborne, and hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, it's a pleasure speaking with you today, and I appreciate you letting Senate kind of provide you some updates on what is happening with the acknowledgement and other updates that Rhea will talk about later. But for some of you who are not familiar with what a land acknowledgement is, basically a land acknowledgement is a formal statement often given orally at organized events or celebrations, really to recognize and affirm the ongoing Indigenous presence on our lands, and as well as counter a lot of the settler colonial legacies of violence and land expropriation. So with that being said, I will share some of the updates to the resolution and kind of give you some background on the inception of this work. So let me share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yep, good, Kamali.
Perfect. So this is the resolution that we revised and represented at the April 16th meeting at the Student Senate General Body meeting. And so I've highlighted the areas in which we've added to. And so for this one here, basically it's Wayne State University Student Senate calls upon the university to allow the following acknowledgement to be read or played through audio recording at public events facilitated by students, faculty, and staff as they choose. And so this just is a statement basically giving freedom for students, faculty, and staff to read this acknowledgement in whatever capacities they feel they need to at whatever events they're hosting, just to acknowledge the work of this acknowledgement, but also the Indigenous presence as well. Also, we've added the phonetic pronunciations of some of the terms for the tribes, and we wanted this to be as accessible as possible for people to read, but also giving that option of an audio recording to be played in the event that an individual may not be comfortable with reading the acknowledgement themselves. I will continue with this highlighted portion where it talks about Student Senate calling upon the university to state the above acknowledgement in the commencement programming booklet, as well as open convocation and the Spirit of Community Awards with the reading of this acknowledgement as well. Another portion was that the Wayne State University Student Senate calls upon the university to highlight this acknowledgement on Indigenous Peoples Day to bring awareness to the campus community, one about the acknowledgement, but also about Indigenous Peoples Day in general, and looking at those members of our community and how much we value them at this diverse space that is Wayne State University. So those are the few updates that we added to the resolution. If there are any questions regarding any of these updates, feel free to speak or anything like that.
Questions?
Governor Basuto?
Governor Basuto, yeah.
Yeah, unless I've read my history incorrectly, I I disagree with one of your issues here in terms of, you say that Anthony Wayne got the nickname of Mad Anthony because of violent injustices toward tribal nations. My reading of history says that he got the name years before the Northwest Indian War for his heroic activities in the Revolutionary War. And in fact, because of his skills as a military leader, it was years later that General Washington asked him to participate in the Northwest Indian War. And in fact, it was atrocities against American settlers who were abiding by land purchase agreements with the Native Americans that caused for General Washington to call General Wayne to participate in these. And I think I have to disagree with your history on this. I think your history is wrong. I think it's being rewritten. And I noticed your list of sponsors didn't contain any history professors. Maybe you might want to consult with the history department before we put out anything that's incorrect here. And the other thing is, if you truly believe that what you say is true there, why stop with just the convenience store name? Why not ask to have everything that says Wayne changed if you truly believe that what you say is true?
Okay, thank you for your comments. So the research that we did, and the culmination of this entire resolution, we consulted with tribal elders and members of the indigenous community, but also Dr. Sandra Gonzalez from the College of Education. She brought with her a number of colleagues from various history departments and others from that community to kind of speak on this, this topic, just to get as much breadth of input as possible. And also looking at student leaders that we reached out to from the Native American Student Organization. So all of that input came into this resolution, as well as the consultation from the Academic Senate, help from staff from OMSI, Office of Multicultural Student Engagement, as well as Provost Clabo here. As regarding the history, we can certainly have a conversation about looking at revisiting what the history looks like. In any sort of fashion, history is often about narrative. And so we have to kind of reevaluate how we look at history and how it's told. And so being able to recognize that in any fashion of war, there has been war against the indigenous community and injustices as far as land expropriation and other violence and settler colonialism within those capacities. And so we can certainly have that conversation. I think for the sake of time, we can revisit it and definitely take some keen notes to the comments that you made and looking at our history here. I know that the Wayne State Convenience Store, previous name, the Mad Anthony's, the name was changed. And regarding your comment of why stop there, that's a good question. We shouldn't stop there, but we have Anthony Wayne and then Wayne County, and those are larger resolutions that take much longer periods of time. And so we can definitely have that conversation, and I would support Student Senate in its future endeavors to look at those, as well as collaborating with community leaders and university administration to do so. As regarding just wrapping up about the resolution, overall is just to respect the desire to recognize the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary stewards of the land. And, this acknowledgement is a responsibility, meaning that it's a declaration that must be followed for ongoing commitments to this community. So I just wanted to provide you that information today, and then we can follow up on further questions. And again, I really appreciate you, Governor Basuito, for your comments.
And I have no problem recognizing these peoples, but I do disagree with rewriting history incorrectly if it is written incorrectly and then taking actions based on incorrect rewriting. So thank you for agreeing to follow up on that. And I look forward to hearing back from you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
And this is Anil Kumar. I just want to add, I do agree with Dr. Basuito. And I do want to make a statement about your question of history being a narrative. History should be about facts as far as we can talk.
Absolutely. So I totally agree.
Check the facts before we malign anybody or any institution. So I appreciate your resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Provost Clabo.
I want to thank you, Molly, for being with us today and for all you've done for Student Senate over the years you've been here at Wayne. We're really grateful.
I think you did a great job. You know, I'm going to read
that,
about you in the future. You did a great job. Thank you.
You're very well spoken, and I have to commend you on that. Thank you.
He's a tremendous leader, a tremendous leader.
He's an all-star.
Provost Clabo, we're down to about 5 minutes, so if you could move to.
Yeah, so we will. This committee heard in September from leadership of Student Senate about the initiatives that they intended to pursue during the academic year. And we have present with us today outgoing Student Senate President Ria Chabra, who will give us a brief update on the many activities Student Senate has undertaken on behalf of students this year. Ria.
Thank you, Provost Clabo. I will go ahead and share my screen and go through all of the initiatives, give an overview of them. So hi everyone, my name is Ria Chabra. I'm the current president of Student Senate, and I wanted to start by providing an update on an initiative that we shared earlier at our October meeting, which was Motivote. It was a voter engagement platform that allowed students to complete bite-sized activities that help them get ready to vote. We had over 240 users of this platform, and this was one of the reasons that we were able to get the Voter Friendly Campus Award this year, which is one of 200 colleges in the nation. So now I will go over some of the social justice initiatives that we have worked on. So to start with, we have worked on Juneteenth and Indigenous Peoples Day being recognized as University Days of Observance. Currently, there are committees that are ongoing and planning educational programming and events for these days with Senate representation on them. And the goal of these is to just celebrate the history of our diverse students, staff, and faculty. So I won't go too much into the land acknowledgement, but Kamali did go over most of it, but I included this slide just in case we wanted to reference it and if there were any questions. So moving on to our student success initiatives. The first one is the campus-wide Black Council, CBC. This is something we've been working on for almost 2 years now. It is a coalition of Black student organizations that develop programs for the pillars are research, professional mentoring,
and mute the mic. Could you pause for a second? Could everyone please mute their mics? Thank you so much. Thank you, Ria.
And then the goal of this is to help provide safe and supportive spaces for Black students in the community. The next one is student resource giveaways that we did this year. So the first one was blue light blocking glasses. We had around 1,000 available, and we distributed them through Motivote in all of the libraries across campus. To date, we have given out around 200 to 300. So coming back into the fall, students still have access to around 700 of these blue light blocking glasses. In partnership with the Office of the Provost, we also gave away noise canceling headphones. So we gave away 300 on Mental Health Day, and we plan on giving 1,000 more next year as students continue a mix of virtual and in-person learning. The next initiative that we've been working on is getting a cap and gown rental program started. So we have currently purchased around 70 bachelor level cap and gown sets. We hope to increase that number to 100 and launch this initiative when it is safe to do so and have an in-person ceremony. But the goal of this initiative is to provide free cap and gown rentals and encourage students, if they would like, to donate their caps and gowns and just grow this program further. This is a program that we did with the Warrior Wardrobe. The next one is the course information matrix. This is something we're actually planning on launching next week. So we partnered with CNIT and Class Faculty Council to develop a voluntary-based archive of course materials. So it's an opt-in model that allows faculty to upload course materials like syllabi, course description, course summary, and it just provides students with more information during registration so that they can get a better understanding of the course. And just to note that all of these materials uploaded are directly uploaded from Canvas, and they are from past semesters, so they're not requiring faculty to create any new materials. So now moving on to our last initiatives, which were based on student health and wellness. We did a water bottle refill station program where we have partnered with facilities to install 2 new water bottle refill stations, one on the 2nd floor of the UGL and one on the 3rd floor. We're also working with them to get at least 1 more water bottle refill station in these 7 locations. And the goal of this program was to provide a safer public health alternative to the normal drinking fountains as we return back to campus, and just increase accessibility of clean water access for students. The next one is a menstrual product pilot program. This is something we've worked on for many years before, so we're very excited to be able to launch this this coming fall. We're going to start by installing 3 dispensers with menstrual products in 1 bathroom in each of these locations. And from there, we hope to expand this program to the 3 additional locations that we have listed, for a total of 6 locations on campus that provide free menstrual products to our students. And all of these products are organic, so they also do meet our sustainability mission. Last but definitely not least, this is one of our biggest and most important initiatives that we've been working on. It's the Mental Health First Aid Initiative. It does have a couple parts, but I will go over them briefly. So this was developed in collaboration with CAPS and the Office of the Provost, because as this pandemic highlighted the importance of mental health and the importance of providing students and connecting them with the resources they need. So the first part is educate. It has 3 parts. So we're developing an online module, which is around 30 minutes, about the mental health resources and what self-care is, that is available to all students at the beginning of the year, and it's online and they can complete it on their own time. The second part that we want to follow up on that module is implementing a module in the first year seminar course that explores these topics more in depth. So this is just to reinforce all of this information, especially to our incoming students. And then the third option is for students to be able to take a mental health elective course that we're currently developing with the College of Education. So the goal of the first module is to teach students an overview of these resources. The second is to teach them self-care. And then the third is to help teach them how to help someone else who may be going through a mental health crisis. And if they do not want to take the course, they also have the alternative to complete the suicide prevention training, which is an 8-hour training. The second part of this initiative is Connect. We're currently working with the OneCard office to add mental health resources contact information to the back of OneCards, as students carry them everywhere and it's easy to access that information that way. The second part is we have an additional counselor joining CAPS. And the last part is a triage system that we're in the process of building by having a health professional in the campus health center who will help centralize all of these sources. So they will be the first point of contact for students, and then match students to the best mental health resources for them around campus. And we really hope this way students can get connected with the right resources for them, and this will help with some of the wait times that they may have experienced earlier, and just really connect them to what is best for them. So I'd really like to thank Dean Strauss, President Wilson, and Provost Clabo for all of their support and for going above and beyond and helping us with these initiatives. And at this time, I can also take any questions.
I don't have a question, but if I can make a comment, Governor Stancato. Just wanted to thank you, Ria, for not only for this presentation, but for your entire body of work this year. You and the rest of the Student Senate was just an absolute pleasure to work with, and I mean that very sincerely. And the Provost and I always talk about that.
And if I can just add to President Wilson's comments, both Ria and Kamali are graduating this year, and they are both leaving the university a better place because of their leadership. I'm just so grateful to our Student Senate. We're going to miss you too.
Congratulations and thank you for all that you've done. Thank you.
Yes, poignant too. I'm very impressed with what you've done and how practical your suggestions are and realizable too.
Thank you so much.
And Rhea, I understand you're thinking about a medical school.
I am. Yes, I'm taking a gap year and I'm going to be applying. So.
Thank you both. Thank you, Kamala.
As one of the physicians, and I speak for Dr. Vosvito also, we really want to congratulate you on that thought.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I think just helping students has been such a fulfilling experience. I've learned a lot and really grown, and especially with the mental health initiative, it's come full circle. It started as a tabling initiative in the student senate or in the student center, and now it's like a university-wide thing. So.
Well, I'll heap on the praise as well. Thank you, especially during this time where, you know, it's so challenging with COVID and you're just coping with your own, you know, challenges, and the fact that you've been able to accomplish all of this is really wonderful. And Kamali, I didn't get a chance to thank you for your work on the acknowledgement. I support it.
Thank you so much.
Kamali, what are you doing next year?
So I'm going to grad school for Masters of Healthcare Administration.
Great.
So looking forward to
it. And then politics. And then politics.
Anything else?
Provost wasn't saying no.
Governor Stancato, are you set with the agenda?
Good,
Anything more?
That's it, I think. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Governor.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Governor Stancato. So the board will be in recess then and reconvene in public session at 2:30. Thank you.